Why did God speak to him while he slept? First of all, who am I talking about? Well, for that answer, let's go to Genesis 15:1. After this, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward. But Abram said, Sovereign Lord, what can you give me since I remain childless, and the one who will inherit my estate is Elijah of Damascus? And Abram said, You have given me no children, so a servant in my household will be my heir. Then the word of the Lord came to him. This man will not be your heir, but a son who is your own flesh and blood will be your heir. He took him outside and said, Look up at the sky and count the stars, if indeed you can count them. Then he said to him, So shall your offspring be. Abram believed the Lord, and he credited to him as righteousness. He also said to him, I am the Lord who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land to take possession of it. But Abram said, Sovereign Lord, how can I know that I will gain possession of it? So the Lord said to him, Bring me a heifer, a goat, and a ram, each 3 years old, along with a dove and a young pigeon. Abram brought all these to him, cut them in two, and arranged the halves opposite each other. The birds, however, he did not cut in half. Then birds of prey came down on the carcasses, but Abram drove them away. And as the sun was setting, Abram fell into a deep sleep, and a thick and dreadful darkness came over him. Then the Lord said to him, Know for certain that for 400 years your descendants will be strangers in a country not their own, and that they will be enslaved and mistreated there. But I will punish the nation they serve as slaves, and afterward they will come out with great possessions. You, however, will go to your ancestors in peace and be buried at a good old age. In the 4th generation, your descendants will come back here, for the sin of the Amorites has not yet reached its full measure. When the sun had set and darkness had fallen, a smoking firepot with a blazing torch appeared and passed between the pieces. On that day, the Lord made a covenant with Abram and said, To your descendants I give this land, from the Wadi of Egypt to the great river the Euphrates, the land of the Kenites, Kenizzites, Cadmonites, Hittites, Perizzites, Raphites, Amorites, Canaanites, Girgashites, and Jebusites. So how many stars did Abram count? He didn't. And how many descendants was Abram promised? Countless. And of the animals he was asked to retrieve, which did he not cut in half? The turtle dove and the pigeon. It says, after Abram fell asleep, why did a horror and darkness come over him? And I wondered, why did darkness and horror come over him? This is because of the affliction and pain his descendants will have to endure. And by the way, what animal rights group would have a problem with God's request today, which is of cutting animals as a sacrifice? PETA and the ASPCA. Now this is where meat is served in the passage. Here's serving number 1. So why did God have Abram to sacrifice those animals and additionally to have a smoking fire pot and a flaming torch? The key detail, though, is that God alone, in the form of a smoking fire pot and a flaming torch, passed through the path of the torn animals in verse 17. Covenants like this one were supposed to have 2 people involved. Both parties to the covenant were supposed to walk between the slain animals, signaling that that if either one broke their side of the agreement, he would suffer a fate like that of the animals. God's covenant then was radically unique. Abram wasn't even awake when it was made, so he couldn't walk the covenant out. God walked through for both of them, promising to bear the fatal burden if either one of them broke the covenant. And centuries later, after mountains of human sin had accumulated, the Son of God bore the covenant penalty on the cross. So here we see part of the reason for putting Abram to sleep. Now here's the other part. So here's the crux of the title of why would God talk to a man while he slept. He spoke to his spirit instead of his soul conscious, beat the flesh. He spoke to him the way he comes and speaks to us in our dreams. He gave a speech to Adam in his sleep so he could fully understand the importance of God's words. And in order for God's words to be entrenched and fully understood, he will speak to your spirit instead of your soul. And this only happens when you're invested in God. Enough said.